Welcome to Daily 5 for Monday, June 17th, 2024. I will admit up front that this 5 is in some ways a call for help, a desperate attempt to try to understand something, and maybe somebody listening can explain it to me because I cannot work out the logic of this story in terms of what the justification for what this person did is. So this is concerning a story some of you may have seen. I saw it posted in numerous places late last week and over the weekend about a photography award called the 1839 Awards, or I guess a photography contest called the 1839 Awards that apparently started late last year as a way to, as they say, quote, honor photography as an art form, end quote. And as part of these awards, there are at least two categories. One is for human-generated photography, which they define as, quote, those who use the camera as their artistic medium, end quote. And then there's another category for machine-generated or AI-generated or artificially generated or whatever term you want to use, imagery. And so they're supposed to be judged on the merits within those categories. And one of the top three finishers for the artificially generated category, or whatever they call it, I didn't look up what the exact verbiage they use for it. But anyway, one of the top three images that was supposedly synthetically created was by a photographer named Miles Astray, and it's of a flamingo that appears to be missing its head and neck. And after this award was given to this photo, it then was revealed by the photographer that this was a human-generated image. This was an intentional deception to prove a point which I have to admit makes no sense to me. Now, I went over to the blog for this photographer. I read the making of this photo and all the explanation. It still doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just going to read you the rationale that this individual gives. Okay, quote, this image was submitted, quote, to prove that human-made content has not lost its relevance, that Mother Nature and her human interpreters can still beat the machine, and that creativity and emotion are more than just a string of digits, end quote. Now, first off, I completely agree with that statement. On its own, if somebody says that, I agree with it. Completely agree with it. But as a rationale for submitting this photo under false pretenses and as a justification of a proving of a point, it makes no sense to me. None. Now, if this had been the opposite, if somebody had submitted a machine-generated photo in the human-generated category and it was awarded, and then they said, well, this was, and I think this has happened a couple times at least now. There's been at least a couple cases I can remember where this happened. That point makes sense. That's somebody who is a true believer in machine-generated art saying, I can create something every bit as powerful and artistically relevant as a human being with a traditional medium of whatever can. And so you have to consider this an equal and valid artwork to something that somebody creates entirely from human creation. That makes sense. I don't necessarily totally agree with it, but I can't completely argue against it either. But that's a completely separate debate. That point makes sense. Going the other way makes no sense. If anything, it would seem to be counterproductive to the argument this individual is making. Because one of the things that people have as a bias against machine-generated images is that it often struggles with basic biology, hence human beings with 20 fingers, or, as I'm sure people here thought, oh, a flamingo missing a head. Like, that makes sense, and people have been making those arguments. But to then say, no, I can also create a warped work, I don't know what that's proving. That's not something new. It's not innovative. It's not particular to machine-generated artwork. It doesn't seem to actually prove anything, which makes me wonder if this is not just a publicity stunt, in which case, by the way, mission accomplished. I'm doing this 5 about it. There are numerous articles about it, one of which I'll link to so that you can read more and see what you think. But outside of it being a successful move to get this person's name in the headlines and get people to be aware of their work, I don't believe this rationale. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. It really doesn't. It's locked up a part of my brain for a couple of days now, where I've really sat there and tried to think how that makes logical sense, that this is actually proving the point this person is representing it to be proving. And now, again, I just don't believe that's true. I think this is actually probably a bit of clever self-marketing. But I figured, you know what? Let me talk about this. Let me throw this out to people. If any of you can explain how this point is being proven, I really do want to hear it. So please let me know, because I'll be honest with you, I can't make heads or tails of it. Later.